Hello, BookTube. This is Alan, and welcome to my channel. Last week, Steve Donahue's channel, he showed a book called The Gospel According to Satan. Different myths that Christians believe. And also commented on Peg's channel, The History Shelf, that during the Civil War there were a split between the denominations. So let me tie those two together in explaining this video. This is the chronological background charts of church history. This is just a collection of charts, 84 of them, summarizing the key persons, events, dates, and ideas of church history from ancient to modern, European, and American. I bought this at the Dallas Theological Seminary. This is by Robert C. Walton, and it was published by Academic Books, which is a Zodovan publishing house, in 1986. And just like it says, it's a chronological chart and spiral bound. And this is the 12 disciples after the death of Jesus. And he talked about their name, biblical information, and traditional information. You know, let's take, for instance, Matthew. Matthew wrote the Gospel, bears his name. Conflicting traditions place him in Ethiopia, Parthia, Persia, and Macedonia. And Thaddeus. Thaddeus has often been confused with Jude, the brother of Jesus. Tradition associates his ministry with Edessa. And this goes on the Roman persecution of Christians and under different emperors of Rome. And you have the Bishop of Rome, the church leaders, the Muslim conquest and the Crusades. And it's a very interesting and reference type book. But a couple of things I want to show you. The first is this one. Religious influence supporting the American Revolution. So you have the Congregationalists, Presbyterians, Anglican laymen in the southern colonies, the Lutherans, and the radical dissenters. Those are the ones that supported the American Revolution. Those who opposed the American Revolution were these. Anglican clergy, which is which is interesting because Anglican laymen supported the American Revolution. Anglican laymen in New England and Middle colonies were opposed to the American Revolution. So you had the Anglican laymen in the southern colonies that were supported the American Revolution, and those in the north were opposed to the American Revolution. Those are the New England and Middle colonies opposed it. So you don't see that in any biography of John Adams or Benjamin Franklin or anything with their members of an Anglican church. Also, the radical dissenters were opposed to it. They were also supported it. And of course, the Methodists were opposed. Going on further, we have the in my space here, slavery, denominational schisms over slavery. So you have the denomination, your division, Northern Organization, Southern Organization, and the year of reunion. Presbyterian, 1861. Northern was the Presbyterian Church of the United States of America. The Southern was the Presbyterian Church of the Confederate States. Later, the Presbyterian Church in the United States. And the year of reunion was 1983. And the book I had by Dabney on Stonewall Jackson, he was a member of the Southern Presbyterian Church during the Civil War. The Methodists, 1844, they divided. One became the Methodist Episcopal Church in the Northern Organization, Southern Organization, Methodist Church in the South. They came back together in 1939. Skip the Baptist for just a minute. Episcopal Church, 1861 division. Protestant Episcopal Church in the North, Protestant Episcopal Church, and the Confederate States of America. They came back together in 1865, which is very shortly after the Civil War. This book also shows you in the back the different family trees. You have the American Lutheran family tree, the Methodist family tree, where they started, like this Methodist Episcopal started in 1784. You also have different churches down here. Evangelical Church, the Protestant Episcopal Church, the Church of the United Brethren in Christ. Up here in American Lutheran, you have the General Synod in 1820, the Ohio Synod in 1818. And of course, they had the Baptist Church. I grew up in the Baptist Church when I was Southern Baptist Church, of course. And so they started back 1639, the British separatists. And then they had the Seventh-day Baptists. They had the European Anabaptists, who came to be the North American Baptist General Conference. In 1852, the Baptist General Conference. And they had a split here called the Old Lights and New Lights. And then you had the Baptist Missionary Convention. And then he had another split right here in 1845 for the Southern Baptist Convention. And down here was a Northern Baptist Convention. And so, having said that, the Baptist Church, 1845, just like I said, the American Baptist Missionary Union, now American Baptist Convention in the northern states during the Civil War, Southern Baptist Convention and the Southern Church, Southern Organization. They came back together. They did not. 150 years later, the Southern Baptist Church apologized for slavery. They didn't raise the bridge, they lowered the river. This also shows a very interesting chart. This book does. A very interesting chart in the back. And this goes along to what Steve said about people believing different things about sowing your seed, about tithing, about giving to pastors who basically only want to go buy another jet. And see if I can find it here. Oh, here it is. and it goes back to this. This is the pendulum effect in church history. On one side, you have emphasis on emotions. You have biblical Christianity in the center. You have emphasis on the intellect. So, Modernism, 2nd century, that was emotions. And then it swung, the pendulum swung to Gnosticism, 2nd and 3rd centuries. That was on the intellect. It swung again to the other side. Monasticism, 3rd to 10th centuries. And it swung back around to intellect. Scholasticism. It swung Over here to emotions, mysticism, 14th, 15th century. It's swung back to Reformation orthodoxy, 16th and 17th centuries. This is where you have the Calvinism, Lutheran, you have the great Puritans, who on Johnny King's channel, if you ever follow him, he's good. You should follow him, given the works of William Perkins and massive volumes of works. And so that was all on the intellect. And then it swung again. 17th and 18th century, you had pietism and Methodism on emotions. And it swung back to liberalism, 19th and 20th centuries. And today it is swung to Pentecostalism and charismatic movement, the 20th century. It is still there. There are some churches in the United States and also throughout the world who are on the intellectual side, but they are very few. The Presbyterian Church in America is one that is intellect. Now I'll tell you about my story in the Southern Baptist Church. When I was a member of the Southern Baptist Church, in like the first grade, I learned about Noah and the well, Daniel and the lion's den, Jonah and the well was actually not a whale, but just a large fish that God created to save Jonah's life. That was it. It wasn't a whale. You can look that up in the Bible. Feeding the 5,000. What else? Zacchaeus. Yeah, Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. He climbed up a sycamore tree for Jesus for to see. I know the hand motions, but I had forgotten them. And of course, a lot about Jesus during this time. So when I got to got in high school in the Southern Baptist Church, I learned about Noah's Ark, Jonah and the well, Daniel lion's den, Zacchaeus, feeding 5,000. And of course, I also learned that it's a sin to drink or smoke or dance. I go, well, something's wrong here. Something's definitely wrong, because the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, just see if I can find that real quick. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, I believe that's where it is. He tells the people of 1 Corinthians that I'm going to give you meat, but you're still drinking milk. Meaning that you're not getting substance, just not growing. You're just babies. So just a minute, I think it's still here. Nope, it's not it. And so, anyway, so I left the Baptist church because of that. My brother started to come into the room. I left the Baptist church because of that, because I wasn't growing. And because I wanted to study more about the Bibles, get in deeper into the scriptures, and people there in the Baptist church I was attending did not. They wanted to stay drinking milk, so I left. And I took classes at Dallas Theological Seminary. Dallas Theological Seminary was founded by Louis Spaders Schaeffer in the 1920s. It is a dispensationalist type seminary, which is the majority of the report here in America. They're the ones that believe that in the 666, the Antichrist, they believe that Israel's in the Old Testament, Israel's in the New Testament, that the temples can be rebuilt, And so I was taking classes there, even though I didn't believe anything they said. There's one Episcopal priest that I attended. He graduated from the old seminary, and he said that the professors there at the seminary were bound to go to bound by what the seminary believes, but the students were not. So the students, he told me that he believed in pan theology, or the pan reformation, not reformation, the eschatological, which meant that it would all pan out in the end. There is no dispensationalist, post-dispensationalist, no premillennial, postmillennial, amillennial. There's a panmillennial, which will all pan out in the end. So I got this, and this is very good. Everybody should have one of these. This is the Atlas of the Bible. This one's pretty old. This is Reader's Digest, put out in 1981. So this basically just shows you, you know, what pictures of people of the Bible, different events, different history of the Bible, and different maps as Jesus' journey to Jerusalem. There's a map on the side there. See this? Had the National Geographic map in here. This is the this is the Jerusalem's holy ground, and it's a very good map. It just tells you about where the temple was in Jerusalem during the time of Jesus. The next thing I have is this. This is the basic Bible interpretation by Roy Zuck. Roy Zuck was a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary. This is by, it says here it's by Cook Communication Ministries in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And so this is just giving you the what and why a biblical interpretation, tells you about the problems of biblical interpretation, and different structures, different literary guides to the Bible. And I took a class at the seminary in this, and it has analyzing the allegories. It's a very good book. It's an old one. This one is a survey of Israel's history. This is a classic. It's by Leon Wood. This one, particular edition, came out let's see. It's by Zonovan Publishing House. Came out in 1970. And it just tells you about different Abraham, about it has different maps in here. And this is a very good book. It just tells you about split Northern Kingdom, Southern Kingdom, King Saul. It's basically what it is, just Israel's history. The next book is Biblical Exegete. And this just tells you about tool for students to use for Old Testament, New Testament exegete, and criticism, historical criticism. Gives you an introduction to exegete, the different how to interpret it, the Bible, different criticisms in the Bible, and structural criticisms. This one came out in, have a date here, 1986 by John Knox Press. This next one is by H. Wayne House. This is Christian Theology and Doctrine by Zondervan Publishing. And this is sort of like that other one I showed at first. This is this basically telling you about the different structure of that they have seminary. You have theological proper, Christology, study of Christ, pneumonology, study of the Holy Spirit, angelology, soteriology, that's salvation, anthropology, ecclesiology, and eschatology. So you have different, here's an ancient diagram of the Holy Spirit. So yes, it just tells you viewpoints of tongues. So this is a very good reference Bible. Here's some traditional arguments for election. It's Arminian view, arguments for and arguments against. Calvinism, arguments for and arguments against. Election. You have Arminianism, Calvinism, and moderate Calvinism. And tells you the definition, the pros, the cons, and scriptural evidences of each. And you have here on Roman sacraments and results of the death of Christ, the penal substitution theory of the atonement, and the views of sanctification, which you have the Wesleyan perfectionism, the Keithswick teaching, the Reformed perspective, and the Chafferian perspective. And tells you about office of elder, water baptism, Lord's Supper, and here is the views on the rapture. So you have the pre-tribulation, proponents of pre-tribulation, the arguments for and arguments against, and you have the partial rapture. You have proponents, statement of views, for and against, arguments, mid-tribulation, statement of views, proponents, arguments for and arguments against. Post-tribulation is like you have statement of view, proponents, arguments for, arguments against. Proponents, you might have classical, semi-classical, futurist, dispensationalist, and others. Historical premillennialism, you have proponents, you have statement of views, arguments for and arguments against. And so dispensational, pre-mill, post-mill, and then finally all-mill. And this is the dispensational chart of the last things. I just had to study this in, when I took classes in seminary. The next one is a background chart of the Old Testament by John H. Walton. So you have prophetic oracles, the Jewish calendar, sons of Jacob, you have historical significance, principles of word study, doing the Hebrew, the Old Testament, and chronological charts, weights and measures, distance between the cities. This one is the theological and biblical studies. Oh, that one's from Zondervan also. The ones on the Old Testament. This one is also. This one is just tells you has little charts. Hard to see is New Testament Christology, the Pauline, Johannine, Hebrews, Titles of Christ, and Old Testament Messianic. So you have the social and cultural issues, Roman, Greek, Asian Minor, and Palestine. So this is very handy. It also has a glossary in the back of different definitions and different things. So yeah, so that's basically it. I don't have my Greek New Testament to show you. I don't know where it's located at the moment. I took Greek and Hebrew at the seminary. There's something else I want to show you. And this is really small. You can buy a larger one if you want to. This is biblical coordinates. This is very handy if you want to find an entry in the Bible. What it says about the flower, and we'll have different scripture references on the site about flowers, about flea. And so let's look up. It doesn't have all the words in the Bible, of course. It doesn't, because the word "and" would be much bigger. "And" is used more in the Bible than anything else. So let's look up a word. Tithe. Tithes, tithing. So, and it just gives you the first sentence with the word. For instance, he gave him a tithe. And it shows a reference, Genesis 14:20. Lord, a tenth of the tithe. Numbers 18:26. You shall surely tithe. And so it gives you all these tithes, references to the word tithing. And I was working at Parkland Hospital one time, and this guy overheard this conversation going that this person who knew somebody who went to T.D. Jakes' church here in Dallas, Oak Cliff, and she went in there because she was behind on bills. She needs some money. So T.D. Jakes said, "Well, let's check and see if you're tithing." And they checked to see if she was tithing, and she wasn't. She said, "Okay," and they told her, "Okay, you don't get any money. Goodbye," and shut the door in her face. So let's see. Let's check here. Deuteronomy 26:12. Let's see what Deuteronomy 26:12 says about tithing. And this is where people need to read the Bible, understand the Bible, to go through all these books that I showed them, and they won't be reading Satan's gospel. So 26:12, and it says, "When you have finished laying aside all the tithe of your increase in the third year," now take that in mind, third year, because it only comes third year, and it says the year of the tithing was only every 3 years. And he had given it to the Levite. Now, why the Levite? Well, the Levite were the priest. They owned no land, they owned no property, they owned nothing. And so they had to earn their living somehow. So the tithe went to them. But also the tithe goes to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Oh, read that again. "When you have finished laying aside all the tithe of your increase in the third year, the year of the tithing." So why are people going to church every Sunday and hearing this rich pastor getting up there saying, "Oh, you need a tithe, you need to sow your seed, or God won't bless you if you don't sow your seed, it's no tithe." It's just the third year, because they don't know their Bible. They're going by their emotions, not their intellect. "And I've given it to the Levite, the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, so that they may eat with your cakes and be filled." So that's it for today, and I thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for new subscribers. Thank you for the lookers. Have a good day.